welcome to the very first Cocktails Top 10. My name is Lucas, I am your host, and today's video is going to be very simple. It's just going to be my favorite guns to use in Call of Duty multiplayer and Warzone at the current moment. Now, my list is not the right list, it's just my list, so feel free to give a like if you agree with my list, or a dislike if you don't agree. But with that being said, comment down below what your favorite guns are to use in Call of Duty right now. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Cracking it in at the number 10 spot is none other than the AK-47. Now, as of a while ago, this gun would have not made this list, not even close. But ever since it got updated a while back, it has turned into a CQC beast for me. And I just personally really love the feel of this weapon. It's got a pretty decent fire rate, it's got really good damage to the head, decent damage to the body, and pretty good damage to the lower body. It's got a decent reload time at 1.17 seconds, but you know, you can deal with that. It's got a 2 to 4 shot kill to the head, 3 to 5 to the body, 4 to 7 to the lower body, and 5 to 8 to the legs. Overall, this gun is just really fun to use. It's really well balanced, as well as if you're really cheeky enough, you could definitely turn this into a smaller version like the AK-74U to get even max mobility. Now, shown right after this clip is going to be my setup for the AK-47, as well as my setups for all the guns shown on this list, so feel free to take a look at them and tell me what you think. Coming in at number 9 is none other than the P90. Now, when we're talking about short range accuracy and high fire rate, we're talking about the P90. This gun melts up close, and I mean that in the most literal sense, as you're about to see. Now, this gun's got 50 bullets per magazine, which means it has a long reload animation, but it counteracts that with 900 rounds per minute when it fires. Now, I don't really use this for anything other than bum rushing, but it is an absolute beast at it. Now, I don't really see anybody use this in multiplayer or Warzone due to its lack of range, but it's still an absolute beast. Now let's get into the next gun. At number 8, we have the HDR. Now, I personally believe this is probably the strongest gun in the game, save for the crossbow, but this gun absolutely just melts. Hip and up, you're dead, unless COD logic saves your life. Now, the only reason I don't have this weapon any higher is just because I'm not really a sniper. That's not my thing. When I play this game, I'm more of an aggressive, rush the team kind of guy. But when I do like to snipe, this gun is definitely one of the weapons I go to, save for a weapon later on this list. But I just don't like it sometimes because of its lack of mobility, and I know it's a sniper, it's not supposed to be mobile, but when you play Call of Duty, you kind of expect a degree of mobility even for snipers because it's Call of Duty, it's not meant to be overly realistic. But other than that, when you get in a groove with this gun, you're just dropping people left and right. And overall, this gun is just a beast to play with if you love to snipe. At the number 7 spot, I'm giving this to the M13. Now, there's a common theme with my guns on my list. I like to use weapons that are generally used more for CQC combat. That's kind of my thing. I like to rush people and be aggressive, so I personally like these kinds of guns, and the M13 is basically an SMG disguised as an AR, in my opinion. It's got an absurdly high fire rate for an AR. It has a decent damage, doesn't do a lot, but it does more than you'd expect. It's got pretty good recoil control, not the best, but not the worst, pretty average. And when kitted out, this gun can hold its own with the weapons like the M4, MP5, and the MP7. Now, I personally like to use silencers and no sights on this because I'm just probably rushing people. But overall, this gun is just amazing at short to medium range. Now, let's go check out number 6. At the number 6 spot is the MK2 Carbine. Now, in the beginning of this game, this was probably my favorite gun to use. Between the smooth reloading sounds, the cool fire sound, the mobility, the damage, the style of the gun, I just had a blast using this. Like, I don't use it as much anymore, but when I do, it's still a blast to use, and I love to use it on maps like Shipment and Rush just to have fun. But Personally, this gun is also not that good in Warzone, and that's kind of why it's at the number 6 spot. It's just not viable, and the drops and the loots that you have with it are just not good unless you have a good loadout drop. But in any case, I still think it's a great weapon use. Probably my pick for the best marksman rifle right now, even better than the Car. But with that being said, let's move on to the number 5 spot on this list. Rounding out the top 5, we have the M4. Now, I'm going to get a lot of crap for this because this gun still has a cult following and it's probably number 1 on most people's lists. But I just feel like this gun just isn't what it used to be, if that makes sense. It feels like it's nerfed, which rightfully it should be because it was so overpowered in the beginning of the game. But I just feel like it's not as good. Now, it's still an amazing weapon. It's still like really, really good at damage, fire rate, and all that, but it's just not my kind of gun, and I don't really, rush with this. This doesn't seem like the kind of gun to rush with, but in Warzone, this gun still is a melt machine. Like, little to no recoil at small to medium range, and it still has its power. Nothing's really changed with that. Warzone, it's still perfectly fine. Just multiplayer, I feel like it's not what it used to be. Now let's move on to number 4 on the list. Coming in at number 4 is the Grau 556 or the Grau 556. Whatever you really want to call it, doesn't really matter. It's all the same. This gun is the best in the game right now. It is perfect. It has great damage, great mobility, great stability. There is absolutely zero problems with this right now. It is the M13 on steroids, and it is probably the gun of choice for almost every streamer and YouTuber that plays professionally in Modern Warfare right now. And there's no real reason to see why not. It completely replaced the M4 as the best gun in the game, and I don't see it changing really anytime soon. This gun it's just perfect. Like, there's nothing I can really say against it. The only reason I don't really use it, and why it's number 4 on this list, just happens to be around that I just don't think it's the ideal gun to rush people with. With that being said, though, let's move on to the top 3 of this list. Rounding out the top 3 is none other than the MP5. Now, this is probably my go-to for rushing and playing aggressive in Modern Warfare. I just personally love everything about this gun. The mag size, the damage profile, the recoil control, the mobility of it. And it being an SMG, it's got pretty decent long-range capabilities, surprisingly. It's just really consistent in everything. I mean, sure, it's not as fast as a fire rate of the P90 or as a higher damage profile like the MP7, but this just is the epitome of consistency, to be honest. It's great in multiplayer. It's great in Warzone. A lot of streamers and YouTubers use this as their secondary and or their primary in most cases. And there's a reason why, because it's like a baby Grau, to be honest. It's like the SMG version of the Grau. But enough of my babbling on the MP5 and nonsense that I'm talking about. Let's focus on the remaining top 2 guns on this list. And the runner-up to first place is the AX50. Now, I know everybody, all 10 people that might be watching this, are probably wondering why, if I've been babbling about CQC weapons, that my second favorite weapon is a sniper, which is a fair thought, but let me tell you why. And it's honestly, I just really, really have a lot of fun using this gun, whether it be in Warzone, whether it be a multiplayer. This was like my go-to gun along with the MK2 in the beginning of this game. So this gun just holds a special place in my heart, and it reminds me of a lot like the Intervention from Modern Warfare 2. I don't know if you'll agree with me with that, probably not, but I just love everything about this. And like I said before, when I was talking about the HDR and its immobility, that's the opposite, in my opinion, with the AX50. I feel like it's extremely mobile, at least compared to the HDR, and it doesn't have as much power, but it does its job. Now, if you thought the AX50 was an interesting choice at number 2, just wait until you see what's at number 1. And at number 1 is the Kilo 141. Now, The reason I chose this to be number 1 is because personally, I think it is the best and most balanced gun not named the Grau in Call of Duty right now. It has an excellent damage profile, excellent recoil control, excellent mobility in my opinion. At least the way I kit it out, it's pretty good at mobility. It is really good in both multiplayer and Warzone, which is not something you can say for a lot of the guns in this game. But honestly, it just fits. Like, it's easy to use, and it's best at mid to long range gunfights in both multiplayer and Warzone, in my opinion. But there you have it. That is my list for my favorite guns to use in Call of Duty right now. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment, and share your thoughts on my list, and comment your own list. Just like that, I'll see you in next week's episode of Cocktails Top 10. Until then,